special meeting of council, and obviously yesterday wasn't a very easy day for all staff with Richie's funeral, which was very well attended by staff. So condolences to all the family from the council. So we're recording, yes, that's all good. Now, there being no apologies, we'll get straight into it. Cash advance debentures variations. David, please.
Okay, thank you. As we've alluded to at the council meeting, this is the documentation we've been waiting for to back up the support package that the LGFA are offering with the CAD facilities. So as the recommendation suggests, and again, as I explained at the council meeting, we just to apply the council seal and authorise the Mayor and CEO to sign these variations so we can utilise them.
Leon, you're muted. You're muted, please.
Just hang on. I'll move that.
You'll move that.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Scarman. Her hand was up first. Any further questions to David on that? If not, all those in, Councillor Webb.
Yeah, in reading through it, I didn't. My question last week was whether we use the same one of our existing CADs and what have you. There is nothing in that document that said anything about using existing. You know, specifying between new and existing.
Okay, so I'll just go and see if I can find it in the page in the document. So on the first page of the variation agreement, in the background section, the first column says, refers to debenture number 40. So that is one of the existing ones, and obviously the other agreement will refer to debenture 42. So it's definitely existing ones, and we're just putting them to one side for a period of time at a lower rate.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you. Right, moving on. Business plan consultation. Anyone got any questions on that? And as is put towards the end of that report, that now's a chance to make any changes. Just one thing I'd like to bring to your attention is right at the end of this agenda, there's the community contribution budget, or the spending there. To me, the Balloli ward is missing out fairly well. When you go through, there's roughly $104,000 in that particular budget, and if you work it out per elected member, it's about $11,550 per elected member. But when you go through the numbers, the Balloli ward to me is probably nearly $23,000 short on keeping it even for all elected members. Now, I just want to bring that to your attention. I don't know how we change it, because you go to Yakamarundi ward, like you've got 3 halls that you can basically throw a stone from one to the other, and they all get the $5,040 or whatever it is. Whereas Jamestown Balloli ward, there's only 1 hall. So I don't know how you sort it out, but there is a bit of an inequity there, I would have thought. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, my comment is that it does seem a bit unfair. Kowtowie and Tarkowie get nothing. Now, I realise that their hall is under a bit different structure, but it does seem a bit unfair. One way that we could help it for this current year, I believe we should give the $15,000 to the Jamestown Cycling and Walking Trail, getting that moving. So that is my comment.
Thanks, Councillor Robertson. Any further, Councillor Webb?
I actually had a query on Richard Daly's email in that he started off with a figure of 1,500 and mentioned 15,000. So
I have spoken to Richard on that one, and that's just a typo.
so it should be 15,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Higgins, did you have a comment?
I'm hearing what you're saying, Dennis, but I wonder about the way that that's coming across. Like I'm not saying that, like I can see the difference in the numbers, but I'm wondering, is that an important consideration? Or like talk to me about how Kowtowie and Tarkowie work in terms of their halls, because that I don't understand, and therefore I don't understand the premise of what you're saying.
Glenn, you're on the Kowtowie committee. Can you explain, please?
Well, Kowtowie is a bit different. That is owned by the community, so I don't think council can actually fund that one. Tarkowie, that is definitely a council hall, so that should come into it. So yeah, that's my comment. But my other comment is I just have to go and shift my dongle. Everybody's frozen up on my screen, so I'm having a few issues. So I'll be back in a sec.
Yeah, all right, Glenn. Councillor Brown, you got a comment?
Oh, look, I suppose there's always, anyone can make a few comments on this. It paints a picture, but there's other things that happen in council areas. And I mean, I tried to get something that demonstrated that the equity, you know, there's things that happen in Spalding or that don't happen in other areas, and there's things that happen in Laura and Gladstone that don't, you know, with caravan parks that don't happen in other areas. I mean, the Spalding swimming pool's not, you know, that doesn't even rate a mention. Like, there's 2 pools here that pick up 10,000, and pools service more than just like Golden Air. People from various spots come to various pools, and we have a volunteer that does Spalding for nothing at the moment, but I don't know how long that's going to be sustained. And yeah, I think we'd need to spend a bit more time on it than trying to deal with it today. And there's other things that happen that probably don't get covered in quite by this, that would bring about some more equity if we looked at it properly.
My comment, Councillor Brown, is I didn't expect it to be sorted out today, but I think it's something we just should be made aware of. Like, we're well into the budget process here, and I think it's just probably one thing we've got to do as well was suggested by Councillor Higgins. We've probably got to put a fair bit of work into our service levels in the next 12 months, just to work out, you know, what are we doing? Are we doing it right? Are we doing things too much, not doing enough? And I think that's something we've probably got to look at in the next 12 months. But yeah, I'm with Councillor Robertson. I think that probably the cycle trail one around the Jamestown area is probably not a bad one, because I think we've got to get some more of these shovel-ready projects. And like, if this goes ahead, it's probably stuff that could be done by local contractors, and I think it'd be a good project. Councillor Robertson.
Mr. Mayor, just one other comment. The 5,400 for the Jamestown Hall, well, they've at this stage haven't received any of those grants. Now, I think this may be the 3rd year, I may need corrected there, that of those grants, but because hasn't been an agreement signed as yet, there's none of that money come forward, and I'm not sure about Spalding whether they've received anything as yet.
Look, no, we haven't. There's no, as far as I know, no hall's supposed to be receiving anything. We put a stop to that at the end of the last council, and nothing's happened. It hasn't actually, nothing's been put in place to replace it. So yeah, I don't think that any hall should be getting $5,000. That was the blanket figure. Didn't matter how big the hall was, they were all going to get $5,000, which, you know, was ridiculous from a number of points of view. And, you know, the whole Jamestown ward, which is 45, 46% of the council, or the whole Blaley ward, really there's only one hall that's maintained by the council in that ward. I think you'll find David just popped up a thing that Tarcowie actually own their own hall. I don't think it is a council-owned hall. Yeah. But how that came about, that communities own their own halls, because the community owns the Jamestown Hall just via the council, whereas Tarcowie and Kowtowie, the community owns the hall, but not via the council, which seems to be an anomaly that came up some time ago. And there's ratepayers in those regions, and we should consider that the ownership shouldn't perhaps be the deciding factor. I mean, it's a public building, it needs to be maintained, and we need to help them, otherwise we could own them. So,
David, you got any comment on the payment of the halls?
There's probably something that's other officers have done a lot more work on. What I would say though is those contributions, yes, they're there for information. There is reasons why sometimes they're not actually paid out during the year, that like a footnote. There is not actually a resolution to approve all of those contributions. They're there as a guide, and they actually covered off just through lines. So you probably rarely find a specific job line that actually has that contribution on it. They're actually just part of a larger job line for those sites. But yeah, maybe Colin or James might have some input on those halls and how that came about a little bit more.
James?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as David mentioned, those figures are indicative at present, and there's work being done in the background in relation to the very query Councillor Brown had. Obviously, work's been done with Jamestown and Spalding about potential management of their own halls, is in the bookings and the likes, but there's also, in the last 12 months, there's been additional work go on with the solar installation, so we're hoping to be able to get all that accumulated together and present it to council to have a look at.
Councillor Robertson?
Mr. Mayor, has there been a $5,000 amount been paid over the last couple of years to some of the halls, or has it been frozen from day one?
James?
It was initially paid across, and then it's been frozen since council passed a resolution in relation to the cleaning and other items, and then part of that was for council to look to assist the groups with mitigating energy costs, which have been completed in the last few months. So I think David's got some bills, but it'll take us a bit of sifting through to go through all of that.
Yeah. All right, thanks for that. We'll probably no need to spend much more time on that. I think that's a discussion for future council meetings. So just on the budget, are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Pollard?
Yeah, my question is to Colin. Are we now going to see or have more reports on these capital projects before they happen? Specifically, the one that I'm looking at is the remote water tanks one, which is not, which we had some information on, but wasn't acceptable. Do we take it out, or do we leave it there and get more information? What's the story from here on in, Colin?
See, thanks, Councillor. The intent was on ones that were in the budget that required more information, they will definitely come back to council prior to any work commencing for council to sign off on them.
Right.
that was made pretty clear. Councillor Brown?
But my view is that that water tanks one should be removed and we allocate the money to another area.
Well,
Like there's been that, you know, it's a $60,000 expenditure. We may, you know, like we may have the, if a report comes in with the proper investigation and proper information, it can be reconsidered. But I don't believe it should sit in the budget with the information council's got at present. And there's other things that are more pressing. We've got a few things to finish off with swimming pools to get all them into a more sustainable position with their solar power. Spalding's pretty right, but I think Gladstone and Jamestown still need a bit of help to get those into the same position so that we've maximised what solar they can do at the pools, and then we I think we saw in a report on some grant money a while back that they didn't get they weren't successful in that the wind farm energy grant system, so we need to do something there. And we need to put some money aside for some design work if we're ever going to get an SLR project up. We need to, we can keep leaving our head in the sand and not do the design work. It's been made very clear that we'll never get the projects up until we do the design work. So we can say somebody else should pay for the design and get nothing done, and we've been doing that for 10 years now. So, you know, they're the things we need to move on, and we need to have some, and that would get a really big project ready if we did that design work. Got that design work done, that would get a big shovel-ready project done that I think we'd have a fair chance of getting funded in the next year or so. And that would be, I think, more benefit to local contractors and to the council area and the broader community, the broader region, as far as transport goes. That'd be a far better spend than what's envisaged for these water tanks. And I mean, even the stuff I gave Peter a couple of meetings ago on a water tank, a mobile water storage tank that would make our own watering stuff far more efficient right throughout the council area, that would fill trucks far more efficiently and could be used for most of the year when we're doing construction. That would be a far better option than one static set of tanks at one location where some years we wouldn't even be working near them. We're not going to be doing roads within proximity of those particular tanks and bores every year. They get used occasionally, and then some years they wouldn't be used at all. So it doesn't look to be a sound investment to me.
Councillor Webb, if your arm's not aching too much.
Propped up on the elbow. A question and a query. Question first, on the walking and cycling trail, that 15,000, would that come out of the 50,000 design pocket?
I would imagine.
Peter.
Um,
David, any comment?
Yeah, it's Colin. I would have thought the design work for the bike trails will be additional to the 50,000. The 50,000 was put there specifically for any new projects that came up during the year, not at start of budget time. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
That's
Okay.
not the way I looked at it.
No, but that's up for council to make that decision. That's the way I've interpreted it. But if you want to change that, that's fine. It's your budget.
Okay.
Councillor Robertson, Councillor Robertson, then Councillor Higgins, please. Oh, sorry, Kathy, the second part of your question.
Yeah, my query was on the discretionary rebate for the Gladstone Bowling Club. It's showing 2 code numbers. Are there 2 parcels of land there for rebates?
David.
Yep.
Sorry, I missed part of that. Could you just repeat that,
Yeah.
please?
Discretionary rebate, Gladstone Bowling Club. There are 2 parcel names. Do they actually have 2 parcels of land there for rateable land?
Yeah, so it would be 2 assessments. I've just got to find that page now. It's down in the report. So, look, you can see there are a few of the community groups do have 2 assessments listed. So, obviously, that's an indication of them having probably, in most cases, 2 pieces side by side.
Okay.
So,
All done now.
Councillor Robertson, Councillor Higgins.
Mr. Mayor, I believe this remote water is too high risk at this stage without any information. I'd like to see that $66,000 pulled out, and we'd be still within budget by putting in the 15,000 for the cycling track, and there'd be a bit of surplus left there as well. It'd be another 50,000 if there was some other minor adjustments needed. But I think this remote water, you could waste that money and not get too much at all in water.
Councillor Higgins.
Thank you. I was going to suggest that one of my questions when I was reading through my information was, did it come from the design section, or were we going to add more into that design section so that we still had 50,000 if we needed it a bit later on? So I guess my suggestion is that we add that $15,000 in to the design budget, please. And for me, the other bit of money that we talked about last time we looked at the budget was the strategic plan money, the actioning strategic plan objectives. It's still listed as 50,000. I thought we talked about moving it to 100,000 in the last conversation, or did I need to bring it back here to this meeting? So that's another conversation to have, please.
David, can you explain that in operational terms?
Thanks, David.
okay, on the strategic plan, when we had the first budget workshop or meeting, we identified that 100,000, and we had 50,000 put in the operational and 50,000 put in the capital. There is a total of 100. It's just it's split between those two areas. And just one other note, in terms of the cycle trail, I think we identified that there's actually a tiny bit of spare funds in this current year's budget. What that would mean is we'd have the potential in the first budget review to carry some of those funds forward to help top up the design funds for next year if it was council's wish to try and incorporate the cycle stuff. And by doing that, it wouldn't have too much an impact on still leaving the vast majority of that 50 grand there for what that was intended for as well.
David, I'm sorry. Can you, I read this a couple of times and I still didn't see. Will you explain to me again what you've done with the strategic plan projects money? Because I found 50,000 economic development in the operating expenditure there. Where will I see the other 50,000?
It'll be in the capital.
In the capital.
Capital down the bottom.
After plant and equipment in the capital, it's the second.
So it's
I obviously thought I'd read closely, but not closely enough. Thank you.
Yeah, right at the end, and it's actually under the IT part or office part because
I
reference
saw
there,
that one. That was it. Okay.
Wi-Fi. Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Look, I think for just to speed things up, I think we need a motion to do this, is to shift that that money there for the remote water tanks, the 66,000. We shift all that whole budget line to design, and then as obviously we get a quote in, a report in on what it's going to cost to do various designs, and we've got the carry forward, as David said. So if we just shift that money to design with the idea that we will do those designs for the bike trail, walking trail, and hopefully if we get a quote in that we get a quote to do to the design for a corner, we can then make the decision whether we can afford to do it, depending on how much the quote is. Like if we get 2 or 3 quotes to design those corners with the Dipty roads, if we got the capacity to do it in our budget, we should do it. But we won't actually know what the cost is to do those things until we see see some sort of a price from an engineering firm to do the design work. So, but if we just shift all that money to design, I'm not sure whether we need to shift some of it. I think we probably, I'd have to ask David, but to the solar stuff, the stuff we need to do at the pools, because we'll be helping them one way or the other. So we need to get them, both those pools, in the same position as the sporting one is, where we've maximised the solar. I just asked David if we've got any capacity to do that with any carry forward or within the existing solar budget, or we need to allocate a little bit more to it. So I'd ask that question, and then if the answer is what it is, I'll move a motion that we shift that money.
Well, just before you move a motion, I'd like to make some comments. But David, you were first. I haven't had a chance to get in. David?
Sure. I'll just cover that solar one. So my understanding is what Ben's talking about is the Jamestown and Gladstone swimming pools NEON funding.
Yep.
On most occasions, they normally apply or receive around that $7,000 mark, and then they may still have to chip a little bit in themselves. I know Gladstone's working hard on other funds from community source, which they've got, and have got that sitting to one side, awaiting on the outcome of the NEON grant, which they were unsuccessful with. So I would have thought if it is a council decision to support them to proceed with those projects, that $7,000 mark each would be what they would require to do that.
Have we got any capacity within the existing solar budget, David, was probably the final part to the question. We've got 50,000 in there, but is that basically all? I think, hang on, I just got to find it again. I think there's 50,000 in there this year, isn't there?
That's right. Look, none of those projects were forecast as part of that 50. It was other council works.
Yeah. So
obviously, Peter Porch is having a bit of trouble with his technology, so he's trying to resolve that. So just be mindful that Peter's not hearing us at this stage. If I can just go back a bit to that water infrastructure one. Now, speaking to the people up that end of the council area, when they see a water truck driving back to Jamestown to pick up water, they seem to be fairly annoyed that doesn't look like a good spend of council's money, driving that far back to get water. Now, I know they're not going to be resheeting up there every year, but every year they're driving back to Jamestown. It's costing us a fair bit of money. So I think just to throw that out is probably a little bit short-sighted, because there's a fair area of that council, of the area up there, that don't get a lot of assistance, and I think it's something that should be left in, particularly for that reason. When you see comments that, yeah, they're driving back to Jamestown to get water, well, it's pretty expensive. Councillor Brown?
Look, the point I'll make on that is if we invested in that mobile storage, raised storage, we could buy water off local farmers, because you don't need a fast supply to keep that full. So you could buy water locally. There's plenty of water. I mean, there's stock water up there locally. If we had that mobile tank that could be used all over the council area, I mean, it wouldn't cost much more than a few $100 to put the pipe, well, $100 or $200 for me to put the pipe work somewhere that they could hook it up here to my water system. And, you know, you'd be pumping water for a few days while they're working. It wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, it'd be vastly cheaper than running trucks from Jamestown, as you say, but you would utilise something like that all over the council area, not just in one spot. And we need to investigate those sort of things long before we look at putting bores down with massive three-phase solar systems and everything else. I mean, it's a long way off. But anyway.
Exactly my point, Councillor Brown. If it's taken out of the budget, nothing can happen, and you're another 12 months down the track. If that line is there, we'll cut it in halves or do something like that. But just don't all of a sudden cut it off because doesn't seem like a good idea. I think it's a brilliant idea to look at something like that.
What I'm looking at is a piece of plant, and that would be purchased through our plant replacement policy, and priorities and decisions would be made with that. We allocate $1 million a year for plant replacement, and there's capacity in that for the piece of plant I'm talking about. And this budget line doesn't need to be here, and we could move it to design work is where we need to do some stuff to have shovel-ready projects, and if we get a report to council that comes back with enough information, we can revisit it. It's not like we can't bring it back in at a budget adjustment if the project's got wings. But at the moment, it's a dead duck. And look, I'd be if a report comes in and it all stacks up and a proper economic analysis is done of it, then yeah, we'll have a look at it. But until we get that, I think we need to deal with other areas, and design is one thing where we're short on money if we're going to get some projects ready.
Well, I'm going to agree to disagree with you there. I've got completely different views to you, Councillor Brown, but that's what democracy is all about. So it'll be up to the meeting. Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, my concern is if we put a bore down, you need, or what we've been told is going to have to be a substantial water supply. It would have to be on council land, so you're restricted to where you can choose to bore, and you might only get 200 or 300 gallons an hour. $66,000 is a lot of money. I'd be rather going for what Councillor Brown is saying and getting a bit of water from the local farmers.
Well, we can do that, Councillor Robertson, but if you take it out of the budget, well, it's got to stop, basically. That's my opinion of it.
No,
anyway.
Not at all. This is a specific budget to put bores and tanks in, something we don't need. If we buy a piece of plant that can be used over the council area, we already have a budget for that. And we don't need to put a budget in for this tanks and water. We haven't got enough information on it. I'll let everyone else have a go, and then I'm going to move something.
Oh, that's good. Any other comments, please? Councillor Scarman.
Okay, I tried something different, but it didn't work. Can the name on that budget line be changed so it's just remote water rather than the bore? And yeah, I've been looking at something else. I've lost that line, but it basically says that it's for doing the bore and everything else. But if it's more a remote water solution, can it remain a budget line that way?
David, Colin, any comments?
Mr. Mayor, the budget line can be changed to any description it wants to. It's depending on what council wants to do with the money. That's all. But if it has specific for water investigations or something like that, well, yeah, so be it. It can be changed to anything.
Councillor Higgins first, please.
I'm just, I understand, like Ben's suggestion around moving it into the plant purchase and replacement line, but I'm just wanting to know from David in particular, and is Peter back? I'm not sure, about what's envisaged for that line for this next 12 months. So that, are we making suggestions that are not feasible, or are they feasible?
Peter, you got a comment, please, perhaps first?
Sure. Okay, first of all, I think, the putting the item up has raised, a number of issues. I think there's been some good debate from councillors on it, and it's raising the awareness of the, some of the issues. Councillors certainly raised the issue of how much water we use, what the costs of water are for our road construction program. So we're getting closer to a point where, we have some different options. Look, I concede that there's more to discover and investigate about the tank proposal. I've made some inquiries with local drillers and have yet to have some feedback on that. I don't see it as an issue that's going to go away, in the sense that we need to work out solutions where they can be found and appropriate means to reduce our costs on our programs. I guess my view as the conversation's gone on is that we can continue to look at options and put up reports to council on alternatives, and perhaps revisit at a later stage in some format. Like I say, the issue is not going to go away.
Oh, David, you got a comment?
Not too much, just that it's council's decision as to what budget line and description remains there. As Colin said, you can change the description when you like. We can change it to the notes as provision of plant and remove the tanks part to sort of specify a bit more precisely what it would be possibly for.
Councillor Brown, then Councillor Webb.
David, question to David. That at the moment is sitting in capital. If that were to be shifted to design, that would go into operational. Would that be correct?
No, we have the design budget of 50,000 is down in the civil area. I think last year we did have some design funds. Well, actually, we've still got it there. In stormwater, there's a further 50,000 of design funds in stormwater. So, okay. Well,
it'd be fairly easy to shift it just to design.
Yep.
At this stage, until we get, and that would cover the bike. We could use that to cover if there's not enough carry forward with a report to council, we can use that money to cover the bike walking trail and other designs as necessary. But we need to get some serious projects shovel ready, which means the design work has to be done. So we have to get some money in there to do it. And so if it can stay in capital, it makes it very easy. And I don't know, has everyone finished yet, or I won't move anything?
No, Councillor Webb.
Kathy,
I have a problem with that, actually having something that stays in place. In travelling through various council areas, I have seen tankers that have been put in position in the areas that they work in, a water tanker, similar to what Ben is proposing, just that it doesn't elevate, which would give the gravity feed. Have we ever done anything like that here, Peter?
Yes, Councillor Webb, we have a water cart that there's an older one, a larger water tank, water cart that in reports provided to council earlier this year, we've designated as a unit that we would travel less and locate in single locations to use as a mothership, as it were.
I would find that to be more feasible rather than having a bore put down somewhere that's not going to be used that often.
All right, any further comments? Just that the design work may not be Andrews Road either, Councillor Brown.
Not necessarily saying at this stage that it will be, but we just need to consider the fact that we need to do design work if we're ever going to get projects up. But we've gone nowhere in 9 years, so, and we can keep going nowhere and let other councils get that allocation of money, or we can put our hand up. We haven't even put in an application in 9 years, 9.5 years. So I mean, which is a ridiculous position when you see where the money gets spent. But so I'll move that if the, I think I'll move that allocation for those mobile water tanks and bores be moved to the design budget.
Seconded by Councillor Higgins.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Robertson?
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment? Is the remote water title going to be removed from that?
Yes.
My understanding would be the whole line would be removed.
Yep,
Is that correct, Councillor Brown?
that is my intention, to remove the whole line and allocate the funding to the design, which will cover. I don't think we need to put a name on the design stuff today, but to allocate those fundings to do design work. We'll look at the carry forward when the budget's finished, whether there's enough to do the bike trail, and then we'll allocate the money out of that it'll be $110,000 sitting there for design work that needs to be done. And that will progress some projects and get some shovel-ready projects ready.
So, Councillor Brown, would you consider putting that $15,000 for that bike trail in that design?
Look, I'm happy to. Just that David said there might be carry forward to cover it, so I'm just going to leave it open. That's why I left it open, because he said there could be a carry forward that's going to cover that. Otherwise, I'd be happy to put that. I mean, we can direct where the design money goes now if you like, or we can leave it till we get quotes and reports and allocate the money as needed to pay for the design work as we get a price on doing it.
Councillor Robertson?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see that this design work, there's 15,000 for the walking trail around Jamestown, a decision being made today so that can progress. Because once the community's got that, then they're able to get government grants. They've been knocked back on one grant because they didn't have any design work done. So that's my comment. I'd like to see it decided today.
Well, I'll seek leave to incorporate that into the motion, that 15,000 of that design work budget be allocated to that project, to the. So I just seek leave to incorporate your amendment into the original motion, if the second is happy.
That's what I'm about to ask. Are you happy with that, Councillor Higgins?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? I think we've had probably a fair bit. I'll put that to the vote, and we're all clear on what we're voting on. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you. Right. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? Councillor Pollard.
Has any consideration been given to what happens if the government puts a freeze on price rate rises? Where is that at?
I think if the conversation is the LGA are going to oppose it pretty well, and I don't think it will happen. They'll probably sneak in the back door somewhere with something else that will probably put the brakes on us a little bit, but in the near future, I just can't see it gaining much momentum. Colin, you got a comment?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. That reform bill that's just went to Parliament will have no impact on this year's budgets. If it does go ahead, it will be in budgets from 1st of July 2021. But as the Mayor says, there's a lot of work to be done, and before it gets there, I've heard from the Greens and the Independents that they will possibly oppose it and want some amendments done to that bill. So there's a long way to go yet on that bill.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Just not on that particular subject, but moving on further. The pools. I think we need to make an adjustment, perhaps in the budget, to get those pools. We need those pools with as much solar as they can have before the next season. So we can't we can't afford to delay that. I mean, we've put new pumps in, and it's actually the pools are using a lot more power than they were before we put the new systems in. Certainly Spalding is, and I think the others are in the same boat. And if we don't help them get the solar, that's going to be in a long-term investment to mitigate their power prices, then we're going to have that coming back to us in another form anyway. So I think we need to, they've missed out on that NEO fund, so we need to, I think we just need to get that done. It's about $14,000 to do the both pools, might be a little bit more. I just have to ask David to comment on that. But my understanding is they both need about $7,000 to get it done. And I think we need to make an adjustment somewhere to get that done. So we would have to increase that solar allocation in capital, which I think is 50,000 from memory. I'm just trying to get back to it. Solar upgrades, 50,000. We would have to increase that to for around figure 65 to get those two pools done, and I think it's something that we should do. But I'll just leave it open to everyone else for a minute.
So, David, would that we be able to cover it in our existing budget, or do you think it needs a bit of a boot?
As I said before, the existing budget certainly didn't have in mind that any of that would go to the swimming pools, because I knew off to the side they'd been trying to chase their own funds through grants and so forth. If we made it came out of the existing budget, well, something else that was intended there would have to go, I suppose. So we could always see how it went, or we could, if council agrees, up it by that 15.
Councillor Pollard?
Yeah, David, could you tell us what that 50,000 was is earmarked for, please?
Sure. I should actually get out the capital justification sheet, which I don't think I've got that handy. I was leaving it a little bit flexible. We're certainly after a few more panels on the office to tie in with the battery that we plan to put on there as part of our backing up critical circuits. We've also got sites such as the Spalding Depot, just pretty much like a flow-on of the previous funds where we went around and did the depots and halls. We've still got a couple more to go on that list. So it was something like the Spalding Depot, possibly the Yakka Hall. There's no coverage down there to fit with council supporting those halls of energy. That one's been sort of left out, and also the office. So that's three that come to mind.
Yeah.
Councillor Webb? Oh, sorry. Councillor Pollard, you got more questions than Councillor
Yes,
Webb?
I have. I just, I mean, something like Spalding Depot could probably drift off for the time being. Wouldn't consider that a priority, because the pools are a community type facility. The council office is our own facility. You'd rather see it spent in the community facilities than our own.
Councillor Webb?
In terms of particularly the Gladstone pool, in my understanding, apparently they don't have the capacity to add any more panels. They don't have the roof space. So could something be done similar to what they've done in Laura for the information centre in utilising a council building and the funds from that solar going towards?
David?
And the same thing could happen in Spalding too. If they
That's exactly that's what we're trying to do with the depots.
Hang on. David's comment, please.
We do have a solution at Gladstone. Obviously, the president there of the pool has been in touch with me along the way in trying to help solve this riddle for them. They are putting some extra roof sheeting on one of their shade structures, which will allow some more panels there. And they've also had a lot of trees chopped down over the canteen area as part of the Tresilva Park upgrades, which is previously they couldn't put panels there because of too much shading, but that issue's now been resolved. So they have got enough roof space there for a solar solution.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, but look, just going back to the point Leon made, that the idea of doing the depots and some of these other spots that are low use is, you know, ultimately so we can use those credits to support pools and you know, hopefully when the rules change, we will be able to shift that generation straight to the pool rather than just as a feed-in tariff. But you know, the idea of building that capacity is to make, you know, our pools long-term, you know, in the long term they'll be sustainable, and you know, putting solar on various depots and things wherever we can, so that we can mitigate those costs in the longer term, which is the whole idea behind, you know, the Spalding Depot in the long term. But there's still a lot of work council's got to do on it to decide how all that's going to be allocated and everything else. And it's the same with the halls. You know, you put 30 kilowatts on the Spalding Hall, you know, it'll more than cover the power, and it should cover hopefully the majority of the cleaning costs. You know, it just depends how it's set up and structured and managed going forward. But you know, they're the things that should happen with these projects. And putting 15,000, we've got the capacity in our budget to put 15,000 more into solar to get these pools. If they'd got the grant, we wouldn't need to do it. They didn't get the grant. We need to get it happening, and we've got the capacity in the budget to do it, and we should do it.
I'm a bit with Councillor Pollard. I think there's a line there. Go within those guidelines in that budget line, and if something has to miss out for 12 months, well, so be it. But I know the solar has been good investment, but we've done a lot of it. So do we need to keep increasing that fund, or just back off for a while? Would be my comment. Do the pools and then whatever else fits in that budget, but that's up to the meeting.
Oh, well, I'll test the feeling of the meeting, because there's definitely capacity in the budget to do it. So I'll move that we increase that solar allocation by $15,000, and allocate $7,000 to the Gladstone and Jamestown swimming pools.
That's second by Councillor Pomeranke. Right. Any further comments? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you. Any other changes?
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment, please?
Yes. Yes.
Just in the consultation, annual business plan consultation, there was 3 issues that were brought to us. One was the Richard Daly one with the bike trails, which is sort of looked at already. One was the about the chilled out fired up festival. There's been no comment made on that, and there was a comment made from Morris Heinrich on rates. I just want to make sure you have considered those before you do move on. That was all.
Yep. Thanks, Colin. I'm just the Kowtow event is a great event, but I think we just open ourselves up for further wish lists as far as if we sponsor that. That would be my opinion, as it's a great event, don't get me wrong, but I think we just got to open ourselves up a bit if we give money to that. Councillor Higgins, then Councillor Webb.
I just wondered whether this one would fit very easily within the grant process, way that we have, that they apply for a grant through the Neon or whoever, in the way that lots of other community groups do. Would that, Glenn, you know more about those grants than me, would they fit within one of those grant processes? You know more about the rules than I do.
No, Kowtow doesn't fit into that criteria, I'm sorry to say. My personal opinion is, I hate to say it publicly, but I think it should be deferred until next year, just so that everybody knows what's going on, what the rules are, and perhaps get a bit more sponsorship. They're finding it very hard to find sponsorship this year because there's just no money around. So my personal opinion is defer until next year. Thank you.
James, comment in the background, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to that, with their timing, I spoke with Mr. Van Bokel, and he commented in order to proceed this year, they'll need an answer by the end of June, which obviously is very close. So that's not going to work in with those community grants if they wish to run the event in 2020.
Councillor Webb.
In light of the fact that they are having trouble with sponsorship, we have, with their inaugural one, we essentially sponsored them for that. I think because it is dealing with mental health, and during this situation, there will be more of it, I think we should help them out.
Just that there is a reasonable amount of help given to those community events that I think goes a bit unnoticed at times, like your rubbish bins and all those sort of things that happen. So it's not as though council are not doing anything. And I'm well aware, Councillor Webb, those mental health issues are going to be I think probably a major problem. We probably haven't seen the force of it yet, really, because I think there probably will be more. But I just think whether we give the full amount or part of it, I think we're just opening ourselves up a little bit too much. Comments, please. Councillor Scarman, sorry, didn't see a hand in the background.
Oh, sorry. The background's a bit busy today. I'm in favour of not supporting giving the money to them because, as the Mayor says, we are open to others who want the same. I know if you gave it to Chilled Out, I'm pretty sure the Law Affair would be another one to put their hand up, because we had to pull out very late in the organising of our fair for this year. It was only 3 weeks out where we had to cancel, and we had already spent an awful lot of money. There is a big hole in our budget, and we're having to do a lot of fundraising this year to try and cover that hole. And if we don't have as much money to run the event, then we'll have to run it more frugally. And everyone's going to have to be in the same boat.
Right, thanks for that, Councillor Scarman. Any further comments? Councillor Pollard?
We're still saying that if it does go ahead, we'd still do what we do for most other outfits with the rubbish bins, etc. Is that correct? Is that how I see it?
That would be my undertaking, Councillor Pollard. Yes.
Right, okay.
Councillor Webb.
Wouldn't that come under the umbrella in our strategic planning for community development? It's a special situation.
I think, Councillor Webb, we're all aware of that, but is the fair is a fairly important event. We've got the air show coming up, things like that. So they're very important events as well. I think you can tie it all into mental health if you want to. But I just feel the comments from Councillor Scarman and that are just probably reasonable for this year. Councillor Moore. Any further comments? What do we want to do? Anyone prepared to move that we don't support it or do support it? If we haven't got it.
It's not that we're not supporting it. It's just that we're not. We don't have the capacity to supply that direct funding that they've asked for. I mean, the idea that I would hate to see a motion up that we're not supporting it. We are quite supportive of the event, but we basically have I don't know whether we still have the policy or not, but we put in place that community grants program to fund things within the community and not deal with requests coming in other ways. Otherwise, it's the precedent you set. If you do it for one, you have to do it for all, and it's a dangerous precedent. So, but I certainly support the event and wish them all the success. But it's the way we've ran our budget for the last 9 years anyway, where we don't support ad hoc requests for money. So I think we have to be consistent. We haven't in the past.
Councillor Scarman first, then Councillor Webb.
Yeah, I think our previous opinion's always been that we don't sponsor any events in our region. We certainly support them with infrastructure help and all those sorts of things, but we do not sponsor.
Councillor Webb.
Right. Could they go down the path of an interest-free loan or a low interest loan of the amount?
David, the biggest concern I would be there is that if they don't make any money out of the event, we end up paying anyway. So, David, you got a comment, please?
Sure. So generally when we're approached for loan funds by a group, we have a process where they need to provide some supporting documentation, financial plans, so that council can actually make an informed decision on that loan. So I'm just thinking in this case, if it looks to me like they're after one-off funding to support the running costs of the event. So if it was a loan, how would they pay it back? Because they're probably working on a break-even position, I would have thought.
Well, that's where it would have been handy if we'd received the attachment that was indicated in the letter, because they had those sorts of details in there, apparently.
Well, I think going forward, my consensus is that we support the event, but we're unable to contribute financially towards it. Councillor Brown.
Just one question, and this, look, did we at one time lend the Bundalia Forest when they had the event in the forest? I forget the name of it exactly, but did we not lend them money at one stage?
I think we may have, Councillor Brown, a long time ago, but
I know we have.
I'm not sure. David, you might remember more than me.
Yes, there was a period there where there was a loan with Bundalia. I think initially it wasn't something that was in place at the time of the event, but they actually then wrote a letter to council asking for that and providing some information on how they would pay it back, which they eventually did. It was probably a bit of a controversial one at the time, but that was the council decision back then.
Yep, thanks, David.
I do remember being approached to write it off, but council never did that.
No.
It was definitely paid back.
Yep, that's correct. All right, we'll move along. So anyone prepared to move anything or make a comment about the Katawi one? If not, any hands? No. Right, there's a recommendation there. Councillor Pollard.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on Mr. Heinrich's letter. I think it's, as I've said before, I partially agree with what he says. And of course, we've done absolutely nothing except bowl ahead and say nothing had happened. So we'll just keep on carrying on.
I take it that if we only get one comment like that, obviously there's not a lot of people dissatisfied with their rate increases. Councillor Pollard.
That is not correct. It is very difficult to find out when these surveys and things come out. In fact, the stormwater one, I had no idea it was out. I think it's on the front page of the council website. not one of my favourite sites. It's not even in my favourites, so I can't even go there. But the number of comments is not necessarily, doesn't reflect. It's all we can go on, but it doesn't definitely not reflect the feeling of the community. But you can't know that any other way than actually talking to people. So anyway, you believe what you like.
That's fine. Fine. All right. Any further comments? If not, we'll move along. There's a recommendation on 1.2 report. Anyone prepared to move anything? Oh, sorry, David. Yes.
Sorry, I noticed in reviewing the agenda, there's a couple of words that shouldn't be in that first recommendation, because it still refers to matters raised at the public meeting, which of course we didn't have this year. So the recommendation will just need to exclude the reference to that.
Yep.
Does it need to include as amended by the previous motion, David?
The motion that you moved, Councillor Brown?
Yeah.
Yep. I would have thought there's got to be some recognition of that in there. Colin, you got any comment on that, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Right. Hang on. Yes. Here we go. You see me now? There we go.
Yes. Oh, you're there and then you were gone.
There we go. There we go.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Yes, you do need to put as amended in there, but you also need to put in there as amended as per motions changed at the council meeting. We need the date of the meeting and all those sort of things into that motion at the same time. So someone looks at the motion as a standalone, they can actually track it back. So you put it as amended at the meeting, the special council meeting held on the 24th of June.
Right. All clear with that?
So following the consultation of the annual business plan,
and consideration
annual business plan consultation period,
in consideration of submissions
and
consideration
of submissions
received and matters raised,
received, council
and council.
Now we need to go one at a time because you're cutting in over each other.
Yeah. I'll stop. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Sorry, Colin. All we need to do is delete at the public meeting, and we're right up until council, and then we need to put in the changes that were made at this meeting. Is that correct?
Colin, I think that's pretty correct, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Just to make sure in the motion you refer to those two motions that were moved at the special meeting. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll come up with the words that are required, Colin and Paula.
Yep.
Well, we probably need to get them now so people know what they're voting on.
Well, we need a motion from the floor then, sorry.
Yeah, well, we do. We just need to, we adopt the, we finish at council and adopt the budget as amended by motion at the special meeting on the 24th of June 2020. Is that correct?
Yep, I think that's pretty right, Colin.
Can I just make one comment that it's not adopting the budget, you're just adopting the annual business plan at this stage.
Annual business plan, yeah.
Yeah, as Councillor Brown said, it's up to the word council, and then it's changed after that. Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you would also want to include those two motion numbers in that motion.
That's what I was thinking. I don't know whether we've got them yet.
Through Mr. Mayor, we don't have the motion numbers at this stage, but we will make reference to the motions when we do it.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll move that then.
Thanks, Councillor Brown. We've got a seconder for that. Councillor Scarman was up first. No further questions? All clear? Or there'll be a little bit of documentation that Colin will sort out with numbers. So all in favour? Against? That is carried. Right, the next part, point 2. Any
Through-
comments?
Really, Mr. Mayor, if I can make a comment that I think by the way you've done number 1, it actually encompasses number 2. David, that's correct, isn't it?
That's
Yep.
fine by me. Yep. All right,
That's what I was thinking.
that's fine. All right, thanks for that. No, good discussion there. Very pleased with that.
Now we've got the rest of them.
Moving along. Right. Not that one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just
Yes.
as a reminder, when we get to this stage now, every one of those motions has to be done separately. We can't-
Individually, that's correct. Yep.
We're well practiced at this.
So is there any questions on that before we go forward with these several individual motions? Anyone got any questions?
Well, just with the first 2, 1 and 2, do we need to include as amended there? Because it's the adoption of the annual business plan and the annual and the budget.
Colin, comments? Do they need to be changed at all?
I would say you just need to put in there as amended at the special meeting on 24th of June.
Yeah, so it needs to go in as well, doesn't it?
Yep.
On Tuesday.
Yep.
So
It's not exactly the same. It's just as amended. That's
yeah,
the way I would take it.
yeah.
Right. What, David, you just got a comment or you just waving past?
Actually, I do. Sorry, I probably was, but I do have a comment. We always have a slight change to the capital valuation. So when we get to item 3, I'll let you know what that is. It's only about $6,000 different, but we need to change those numbers.
Right. Thanks, David. Right. Number 1, anyone prepared to move it, please? Councillor Scarman, Councillor Webb. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now sing out if you can't keep up, Paula.
David, we need to get off the screen. That's all.
No, you're not on mine.
No, I can see all the elected members, Colin. So it probably doesn't matter if they're voting, unless other councillors want to see who's voting. But I can see all of the 9 elected members if you stay on.
So can I, and I'm just on an iPad.
Yep. All right. Move along. Number 2. Someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Scarman, seconded. Councillor Pomeranke. No questions. All in favour? Against? That is carried. Now, David, number 3.
Okay, so the figure changes. Just swapping between them here. So the first figure there, you've got 1681 709 440. The 709 changes to 715.
Yep.
The next figure you have 1647 719 217. The 719 changes to 725.
Yep.
The last figure remains the same because that's the non-rateable figure.
All right. Any questions on that? Someone prepared to move? Councillor Scarman, Councillor Higgins. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Number 4. No changes. Someone, Councillor Scarman, seconded. Councillor Pomeranke. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. 4A. David, if there's any changes, call me up, please. All good?
All good.
Moved councillor Webb, seconded councillor Scarman. All those in favour? Carried. 4B. Moved councillor Higgins, seconded councillor Scarman. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Number 5, general rate cap. Moved councillor Scarman, seconded councillor Higgins. All those in favour? In favour, against, that is carried. 6A. Someone prepared to move councillor Scarman, councillor Brown. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. 6B. CWMS, moved councillor Higgins, seconded councillor Scarman. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Number 7, landscape levy. We'd love to cut that one out, but we can't. Councillor Scarman, seconded councillor Higgins. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Number 8, discretionary rebate. Prepared to move, councillor Scarman, seconded councillor Higgins. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. 9A, move councillor Moore, seconded councillor Webb. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Discretionary rebate, move councillor Brown, seconded councillor Pollard. I think we got most names in, have we? All those in favour? Against, that is carried. You're up with us, Paula? Yep, must be. Number 10.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Number 10, councillor Webb, seconded councillor Pomeranke. All those in favour? Carried. Fees and charges. Councillor Pollard, seconded councillor Webb. Hang on, David, sorry.
Sorry, I almost forgot. There is a new fee that we need to just make note of in this resolution. It relates to the way that development applications will be going on a new portal system. So, just trying to find my notes here. And Peter may help me out here as well if he's got it.
Certainly, e-lodgement assistance fee.
Okay, so that's in number 11.
Yes, so we're proposing to add an additional fee for assistance to the public to lodge their online application. It's effectively a new task that staff would have for those people who aren't able to lodge it at home and require council officers to lodge it on their behalf. So the fee being proposed is fairly small, but the fee being proposed is $20 for that service.
Councillor Brown.
Well, we've helped people in the past. Staff have helped people lodge development applications for years, and we haven't charged a fee for doing so. And I'd be inclined to think that we would continue that process without, fees generally, once they're implemented, just tend to go up and up and up. And we will want development to continue in the council area. We have an exceptionally good reputation with the business community as a council, working with businesses to get their development applications approved, and we don't put obstacles in their way. And with the new process, I don't see the need really to introduce a new fee. I don't know that it's essential or legally required. If it is, well, then we'd have to do it. But certainly we've helped people in the past, and it hasn't been something we've charged for.
Peter, do you want to comment on the extra work that's required?
Yeah, will do. Certainly, there's no suggestion of not assisting people to get to the point where they can lodge the application online. So that's a given. That will be required. That won't cease. So we continue to do that. The new system, however, requires that people do a lodgement online. Now, there'll be many people who are able to do that, which will, once we've got people to the stage where this is the required level of information that you need to be able to lodge that, many people will lodge that online. There'll be others who, for whatever reasons, are not able to do that online and will come and ask council to assist them. Now, that effectively, that's a result of the implementation of the system by DIPTI. It's not our choice to go with this process. The regional assessment panel members and the other planning officers have identified this as an additional task that we effectively we're not doing now. Now, introduction of a fee means that there is an incentive to manage that process from individually as the setup of the system is intended to do. Not implementing one means that whatever assistance we're providing from the word go will continue for the next 10 years and it'll be no different. If you implement the fee, there is at least some, if you like, an element of putting the onus back on the individual to do it rather than just saying the council will do it for you, so don't worry about it. And you know, and that cost for council just being ingrained. So it's a measure to endeavour to reduce the burden on council staff.
Councillor Higgins.
I have a concern about that, and I understand what you're saying, Peter, and I acknowledge that there will be some people who could do it themselves but won't. But I worry about those people who quite literally cannot do it themselves, and therefore we are excluding people from the process from their point of view. Like if it's all of this fuss and then there's another $20, they might just go ahead and build that shed and not tell anybody, sort of thing. Like I think we need to make it as easy as possible for people to do that improvement or to come into our council area and want to be part of improving the infrastructure within our council area. So I would not like to see it as a general fee.
Councillor Brown, then Councillor Pollard, please.
Look, I endorse wholeheartedly what Councillor Higgins said, and just want to add that, you know, a fee like this disadvantages the elderly in our community, and it disadvantages people that don't have access to the technology for whatever reason, and you know, whether it be the lowering and it just creates the problem that's been coming to council. Alan's raised a number of times in recent times of developments happening without approval. So it's just another obstacle you're putting in people's way. I think we could go for 12 months. By all means, if council staff are being, you know, used up by people that do have the capacity, we review it in 12 months' time. But I wouldn't like to see a new fee introduced that disadvantages the older people in our community, or the people that are less able, can't afford the technology, whatever. And it's only a small development. Yeah, it might be just a small improvement in the backyard, whatever. I think it's, yeah, I don't think it's necessary. Start introducing a fee, it'll only go up.
Councillor Pollard first.
Yeah, I'm a bit on both sides. The thing is, if you put it in and then look at it over a period, and when we talk about service levels, that's where that should come up. Are we purely a service organisation, or do we really need to recover some of the expenses we have, and do we need to put the responsibility back on the people to do their own business, which seems to be the way governments are going at the moment. So I'm on 2 bob each way, but at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Webb, then Councillor Robertson.
You're muted.
Muted, Kathy.
Sorry about that.
Again.
Just looking at the attachment C, I can't see anywhere that it's actually been possibly included in there. Would it, the closest I can see for any charges coming out of the office would be for photocopying. So would it go in there or what?
David, Peter.
Well, it's effectively a new charge, so it would sit in there. Well, it would just sit amongst the charges there somewhere, but it would be a new charge.
Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, when dog registration and renewal went online, there's still a number of people, quite a large number of people who couldn't do it online, went to council, front desk to get it done. We didn't charge them an extra fee, so I believe we don't want to bring this in.
All right.
I'll move the motion as it is without including the extra fee.
Now, I think, Paula, did we have someone move and second that declaration of fees and charges before I noticed David waving his hand?
Yes, that's correct. I've got that Councillor Pollard moved it and Councillor Webb seconded it.
So if there's no change, do we need to do anything? I think not. No. All right, so we'll be voting on number 11 as initially moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you. Number 12, waste collection. Moved Councillor Higgins, seconded Councillor Brown. All those in favour? Against? We've had one non-voter, that's all right. That is carried. Sorry, Councillor Scarman, your background, I've got a job to see your hand with all the stuff that's in the background. All right, thanks for those. All right, moving along.
That's it.
That's it, yep. Any further comments on the budget process? If not, thank you very much for your cooperation this morning. I think it's been pretty good discussion, and all indications are that this may be our last Zoom meeting, but we'll just be guided down the track. So hopefully we'll be face to face. I think all indications are that we should be pretty right from here on in. Colin, you got any comment?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's the plan at this stage. With staff starting to move back in the building from next Monday over a 2-week period, by the time we get the next council meeting, all managers will be back in the office, and the restrictions which will come in next week about density reduces from 1 person per 4 square metres to 1 person per 2 square metres. It frees everything up. Councillor Pomeranke, I think.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to finish, Colin. Yep. Councillor Pomeranke.
I'd just like to check on the talk about changing the rate, and when are we going to move forward with that, and what's the timing plan for that?
Just, you're breaking up a bit there, Ian. Can you just repeat that again, please? Whether it's my technology.
There's just talk about the make up the rates, the different components, and changing that around and looking at that. When are we going to look at that?
Through Mr. Mayor, I can answer that one. I think what Councillor Pomeranke is talking is a rating review, which we've got scheduled in a strategic plan and our part of our task list for this year. The intent started almost straight after we declare the budget. So July, August, we'll be looking at getting some quotes in for someone to help us do that. So it's a consultancy we're required on that one as well, because a lot of complications in looking at different land differentials and all those sort of things. So there's a multitude of factors that you can take into that. So July, August, we'll start the process.
Councillor Pollard.
Yeah, look, I think we should review it ourselves, and then if we consider that we need some expert help, then we get it. I wouldn't just be bursting out and get some outside expert in to give us a hand on that. We should have a plan beforehand and they can review it.
So, Colin, I'm not sure how the process works, but should that be at our agenda item for our next meeting to
Yep,
have
I'll
preliminary
put it on-
discussions on that?
I'll take that on board. Yes, I'll put it on the next agenda so we can have further discussion.
All right. Okay, thank you very much for your attendance. If there's nothing else, I will declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you.